Hey, these are the results of Winter War here in Denmark, a small local friendly game store tournament that I ran last weekend. I haven't done a PowerPoint for this because it wasn't, it's difficult to do something for three game tournaments, and I also do not feel comfortable about it because I ended up winning my own tournament, which is bad form. So, anywho, I'll show you the results though. And I will also sort of talk about some of the lessons that I think we learned from this tournament. So, let me show you the results. These are the results. You can see the top 10 here. This is on Tourney Keeper. Link is in the description. That is the app that we use for most competitive games here in Denmark. It works really well once you get to know it. I am not an expert in it. And a little bit of a surprise, we had two Finnish armies in the top three. This is not because they were maxing out on stuff. I think actually Christopher ended up in the top three by mistake. He played the same rookie beginning player twice because they had played the wrong missions, and we didn't want them to mess up the rest of our tournament. So he actually had two fairly easy games, and you can see once he gets to his third game, there he is playing a very hard, very competitive list as well. He played Thor, who has been featured on this channel. He had a 32 orderized French list, UFO spam, and battle snails. And he actually drew against Thor. So I'm not trying to take away from Christopher's third place here, just saying that he himself feels that maybe it wasn't a third place. And, he also submarined massively into that placement. But Jesper Winter had a not a T20 spam list, and he's been playing Finnish forever. So I feel like both of these players are not like just jumping on the meta bandwagon and ending up in high places here. They're actually doing fairly okay in the tournament itself. I went 3 wins. The only other player who did so was Jesper Winter as well. And you can basically see that I had almost twice as many kills as the closest competition here. I massively it's such bad form winning your own tournament like this. I wasn't TOing, let me say that. I was EOing, so I was the event organizer. And I had asked everyone if it was okay that I came to actually play, because I've been TOing for such a long time, and I wanted to get back in the competitive game, and then I win, which of course is what I was trying to do, but it's bad form. Anyway, I had predicted that Torben here in 4th, and Michael C in 6th, and Benny in 12th would be the ones, maybe with me, would be the ones who were fighting for the top placement. And we were. Michael met me in the final game. Had he met either Jesper or the other opponent, would potentially have been Casper at that point, I think he would have won that game, and that would have placed him at least in 2nd. But he played me, and I got a lucky shot. He placed a jeep where I could see it, and I shot it and killed his, I think it was a dog team and his company commander. And after that, he never recovered. I think I killed 18 order dice of his. So it was a brutal slaughter. But that first, me breaking that one unit was what started it all going downhill for him. So he got submarined, but he was actually in the finals. And Torben, he did a little bit of a submarine. He lost the second game. And he actually lost to Michael. And then in the final game against Benny, he won, and that catapulted him up again in the rankings. Whereas Caspar and Jesper, they fought each other. in a really cool game on a winter table. Unfortunately, Caspar had brought his Italian I'll have everything wheeled list, and that didn't turn out well in that winter table. There was a lot of stuff that the two players said was rough ground. I think they should have called it open just for maneuverability, but, is what it is. Best placed Death Star was Jonathan Martin, who came 11th, just shy of the best 50%. So Death Star's still not working, even though we had both Jonathan Martin and Andreas, who both tried bringing Death Stars. They both had heavy tanks. It didn't really work out for them. And of course, the best placed rookie for me would be Christopher or Bo Nielsen, who is a fairly new player who did really well, also submarining past some of the major players here. But, Jan Petersen also fought with his German army, and he unfortunately met me in the second game. You can see that his one loss, and I massively trashed his army. We were playing Fog of War, and my army was just, he couldn't stand up to me. Let's just say that. So, those are the results. A lot of fun was had. I think most people enjoyed it. And I'll just give a shout out to the two guys at the bottom here, Henrik and Ulrik. Henrik is a completely new player who's been turning up this last half year. An absolute gentleman. Love him. And Ulrik, he was having his first games at this tournament, and he still managed to kill stuff. I mean, how cool is that? Just so cool. So cool. Right. So I had made the tournament in order to test out a few things about V3. I wanted to test out what you can and cannot do, what works and what doesn't work. And I think that for me, the main takeaways as a TO, as an EO, is the missions don't always work. I think we need to think about the missions. I have just rolled them out of the book. Luckily, I got missions that all sort of worked. So we had kill points, we had objectives, and we had breakthrough. All of those sort of work. But it doesn't always work in the combination of how to deploy and where you have your deployment zones. So I think we need to do custom missions for tournaments, or at least think about what goes with what, because you can't just roll it out of the book and get something that works. Winter War was also an experiment in the amount of terrain that you needed, because I wanted to see if you could stop static play, gun lines, multi-rocket launchers, and people just sitting in their back lines shooting at you with machine guns, basically. And I feel like that actually worked. Then you may have an argument saying that, Winter War may have had too much terrain, and you can go and watch some of the images of the tables there. And yeah, that can be true. We may have had too much line of sight blockers on some tables, too little on others. But I think you just have to find the right balance. But I do think that more terrain gave us a game that was more decided by maneuvers in most cases, by people moving instead of just sitting back shooting. Although that did happen in a few games. But mostly it was people maneuvering to get across the board, to get up where they needed to go onto the objectives, or maneuvering to get to the right place to kill the enemy, right? So maneuvers was actually there in a way that I haven't felt in V3 for a while. I have had games where I felt like no one is maneuvering, no one is doing anything. We're just sitting back in our deployment zone shooting each other. That, for instance, happened to me in some games in World Open War. And I don't like that. So for me, that was really nice to see that more terrain, as Warlord Games has stated we should do, actually meant more maneuvers. I also think there's a huge takeaway in that there's still a very large spread of what army builds you can take and do well with, what nations you can take and do well with, although we're still not seeing many of the minor nations. So I'm hoping that smaller games, once they get to the minors, will do some tweaking and will make them playable and give them flavor. Right now, I'm a little bit disappointed in how flavorsome the first few books are. The Armies of Germany here was a little bland for me, and I think looking at the leaks for Armies of the US also feels a little bland. I can understand that they don't want to ruin something that they feel like is working, but on the other hand, I would encourage them to just, give a little bit of flavor so that when you're playing Americans, you can feel like this is the way Americans should play, and that should feel different from how Germans should play. I also think that we need to do something about forward artillery observers. Multi-rocket launchers were just nerfed. I think we should maybe look at forward artillery observers. My favorite nerf for that right now is the idea of taking infiltrator away from them, because that would mean it was really dangerous to deploy your artillery observer, because the enemy's infiltrators could shoot him and kill him, and then he would be gone. And I think that may actually be a good solution. Just remove infiltrator from forward artillery observers and forward air observers potentially as well. Although they do have a counter in, bringing enough flak. I also think that one should seriously consider placement games in the final round of at least GTs, 2-day GTs. So that once you get to round 4, going into round 5, the 2 people who are on the top table are playing for first and second place, no matter what happens on table 3, 4, 5, 6, and down the line. So you're playing for the placement in the last game. I think that actually, because a lot of submarining is taking place. I personally don't like that. I think in some cases it can lead to players looking at each other saying, well, I would be happy with a draw, and then the other player says, well, I also would be happy with a draw, and then they are basically both playing for draws or match fixing, and I hate that. I hate that idea. So I think in order to encourage players to actually, at least at the top tables, go for the win, of course that would mean players in the middle would not have a chance to get to the top tables once you get to the final round. I have no problem with that. Because it's important for the top players, the players who are going to win or not. That is important for them. For the middle players, they're not going to win the tournament anyway. So winning just because someone else lost a game that you didn't participate in, I don't know. Right. Anywho, you can disagree about that all you like. I just feel like that would be a nice addition to 2-day GTs. Right, so that was my my feedback from Winter War. Thank you all for listening in, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.